All right. And hello and welcome. This is Evo and joined today by Michelle from, you're going to have to say that for me one more time as I pull out our lovely bit here. Tell me a little bit about yourself, Michelle, and a little bit about the work that you and I both do together.
Yeah, so I'm just so excited that we get to talk about this and that we get to dress up. We get to drink cocktails. So, fantastic. I'm a creative technology strategist. So I work with a lot of brands and with agencies to help them infuse new immersive technologies into their brand marketing mix. And so Evo and I are, increasingly looking at how that works for brands where the digital convergence has become very real and immediate, and everything in their life, in a brand's life, is now going online. So all of a sudden we're in hot demand, which is great.
And today we have our cocktails with us because we're doing something different today. We're going to do a little virtual walkthrough of the catwalk video game, maybe.
Video game.
All right. So I'm going to be bringing up our subject of the day, and I'll leave us over to the side here having our cocktails as we play along. Now I'm going to play us through a little bit, and we're here to have this conversation with all of you. So feel free to jump in the comments. Some of you, if you're watching on YouTube and sometimes on Facebook, we can see your comments coming back in. But if we don't, you might want to jump onto a different medium. So feel free to say that you can follow us on Playable Agency at Admiration. And Michelle, where do people follow you in this world?
Good question. LinkedIn, Michelle Excel on LinkedIn. There's my name right there. That's probably the best place.
Perfect. All right. So we're going to jump into the Balenciaga Afterworld. Now, this is a really interesting project, and it came across my desk a couple of days ago, the beginning of this week. I would say in conjunction with some of the things that we've seen from Unreal Engine. So it's going to take a second to load, as these things often do. And hopefully we will get to come into this world where it will be resed for us. Now, how much do you know about this project and how it came together? Oh, here we go. I hope y'all are hearing this. This is the soundtrack that came with the experience itself. So you can see that there's a virtual catwalk of sorts here happening. We are getting the sort of characters in terms of what they're outfitted with. And we're going to hit spacebar and start the game. So at any time, I guess we can hit P to do a screenshot. I'm Evo, so let's play Ivo. I don't know how much of this we get to like play out each individual character or if they have their own storylines, but here we go. Michelle, when did you first do this?
Over the weekend, but on mobile.
How was that? Which device were you on first?
I'm on an iPhone 11 Pro, so on iOS, and I did it on mobile. Came across it on social, somebody had shared it, clicked on it.
Fantastic. All right. So here we go. We are in zone 1, and now we have movement and agency. I'm going to look around just a little bit. You can see it's pretty. So I'm using the arrow keys to move. There's outfits. We do seem to be in some sort of like fashion-like environment. Some swank shoes.
Yeah, it feels like a retail store, right? Like it feels like a gorgeous retail store. I've got to say that when I first did this on mobile, I found navigating really quite difficult. I found the environment absolutely beautiful, but navigating was quite tricky. Now, so this is a good point, right? We're coming up to this person and
I'm trying to click on them and nothing happens. And I'm like, can't you talk to me? Are you just like mute?
Well, that ring around them makes them feel like they're a game element.
Right. And I think if you screenshot yourself with certain characters, but it doesn't really seem like they're interactive. It's more like at most you're going to take a selfie with someone in here.
Well, perhaps what it means is that you're able to, walk around them, and maybe that ring of light. Because you see that ring, right? It's not a solid line,
right?
It can be hinting at the fact that you could actually walk around that person because they are three-dimensional.
Right. I enjoyed looking around with this one. I actually took my photograph with them the first time. And I felt like that one I actually was wearing an outfit. This one too was wearing an outfit I would actually wear. Right. Like I had some chrome boots like that. They weren't like full on armor boots, but I love that trench coat.
If you just go, or maybe with the next character, I loved her movement. Like she felt so real. She really felt like she was in that space. They did an incredibly good job of grounding her.
Now you don't really get to go backward though. I've noticed. Like once you're forward, you're forward.
I never tried.
You're not really able to track back, for example, to that woman we liked. And I love the texture of that puffy. It's really nice.
I mean, the fact that this is built in Unreal Engine and we're looking at this through, a web experience.
Right. And so we're getting these sort of like chapters. And so it seems like it's set up in, I think, 5 or 6 chapters.
Yeah.
What did you think of this? It's like taking facial recognition to the next level.
It's gorgeous. It's like when that glitch leaves their face.
Oh yeah, kind of creepy, but also
the fidelity of that face is so realistic. Yeah, and in the game environment, like that, the reality of that face was just so gorgeous.
I love the fidelity of this world, although she's looking a little glitchy at the moment. Ooh.
No, anyone glitched before, actually. That's pretty cool.
I don't mind glitchiness, honestly.
Maybe the world is breaking down. Wouldn't it have been cool if they actually and it started to break down, or maybe some of the green elements started.
See what's happening? There's a drone that just buzzed me. So again, outfits that I might wear, but this part feels very real. The game music feels like game music.
Yeah, the music's great. They did a great job of that. I love that there's characters who are not necessarily part of it, but they're still on the streets. It doesn't make it just feel like an empty world too.
Right. It did feel like every experience I've had in New York, pretty much.
It really
the cars are a little futuristic. I understand that the artist, okay, so we are hitting a little bit of lag here, but not too bad.
I was getting lag if you just like full steam go down. But look at in the background, the people walking backwards. Like just scenes.
I hadn't noticed that the first time.
Yeah, if you stop and you notice some of these scenes, they feel really surreal, like they're inside a music video or a commercial. Yeah.
Right. And so this was a French creative team that built this, and I understand it took them about 6 months.
That's what I heard too, but and a production team out of Germany is what I heard.
Right.
I don't know who, and I probably could have pressed and asked, but leave some mystery. We'll find out who it was.
Again, why do you think they chose to not make this interactive? Or do you think that they maybe wanted to and just didn't, get there in time in terms of the Unreal timing?
Really good questions. So there's such a pull here between there being game-like elements, the movement, what we haven't spoken about is the countdown clock. Yeah, I screenshotted this guy.
I love this bus. Okay, this is one of my favorite parts this here, where it bends.
I tried to screenshot it. The screenshotting wasn't great because you really couldn't tell when it was screenshotting and where it was necessarily going. So the composition was a little bit lacking. I do wonder how much user-generated content they got out of this, which didn't necessarily need to be a KPI. But it was
right. Yeah, I made a few things, and we can take a look at some of the like fashion and all of that later as well. But so this world is very atmospheric. I like really nice detail in terms of the falling leaves and the sort of misty, foggy vibe. You get the sense that you're trying to maybe get out of your urban environment. There's a Japanese bar over here, which I totally wanted to go and hang out in. I have not. It says restricted, right? So I can't actually go over there and hang out. So anyway,
I hadn't noticed that. I hadn't tried to go completely off the trail.
Yeah, you get this restricted thing if you go out of bounds, basically.
Yeah.
Which kind of bummed me out because I was wanting to go and hang out at the Japanese bar and do some people watching.
So this is definitely one of the things that you mentioned. So you asked about the lack of interactivity, or do you think it was do you think it was a limitation of time in the production schedule, or do you think it was intentional? I kept playing this, going through this, waiting for the game element. And I saw a lot of comments as well where people were questioning what the game element was.
Right.
You will notice that there is a countdown clock when we're back out in the normal world, when we're following that path.
Right. And I assume you got to get to that party by the time, is that the game?
By the time the clock goes down. Again, music. Fantastic here. I'm loving the music in this. Needed that countdown clock again because you keep on going forward, so it's pointing you towards the party. But beyond that, there wasn't any other game. So I found the world fascinating to walk through once they got off mobile and was onto desktop, which is a lot easier to navigate. But to your point, I wanted to look around. I wanted to stop and look around. I wanted to explore. But this clock was sort of driving me forward, and so was the actual illuminated path.
Right. So that's where I wanted to take a little more time and can you interact with any of these folks? No, not really.
I haven't heard anything. It would have been great if there were Easter eggs in it. So I think there's definitely a pull here between getting through the world and making it into a game. And that was probably one of the objectives, was to make it feel like a game.
Right.
So it helps with that. Having a goal. And
right.
So you have a task, so you know where to go, and you kind of start to master the controls. But you want to stop and look around this lush world.
Right. And like, I want to hang out at the rave longer. So I'm going to try and engineer our experience in here to hang out at the rave longer. But like I was telling you earlier, when I was in here, I was trying to set up the green screen so that we could sit here and, have our cocktails and do all that. And my usual OBS and green screen wasn't working with this because it kept crashing. Oh. So it's very processor heavy. So a lot of people aren't necessarily running this very well. I don't know if you've seen that, but.
Well, the only time I've ever noticed any performance issues, and granted I'm on incredibly good Wi-Fi, we're on fiber, but the only time I ever noticed performance issues was if I was full steam ahead, racing forward, and I was near the end of a chapter, like I was near the end of a zone. I think it was especially in that sort of New York style scene, the first time you came outside.
Right.
I really noticed any lag. But I actually have to say that I found it very processor friendly, because right now I am on an insanely old MacBook Air. And I've played it on this MacBook Air. I've played it on my, very, very light Lenovo laptop PC. Lenovo Yoga, which is not a performance machine in any way, shape, or form, right? I've also played it on my phone. Granted, it's an iPhone 11 Pro, but it's
So I'm gonna try and stay here and in the next scene as much as possible, because I mean, this is where we leave the city, and it's got that really nice kind of like, it could be so many different cities. Like some of it felt like New York, but some of it felt European. I don't know if it was modeled on Berlin or Paris or New York, or kind of a mix of all three, but. Well, we can take a look at a little bit of the production details later and see where it might have been shot, because we're looking at a virtual production where these models, in this case, would have been produced with a mix of virtual production tools in terms of like volumetric or holographic capture tools,
and straight up post-production as well.
Oh yeah,
redressing them perhaps. I mean, these ones are a lot more interactive, as you can tell, than any of the other ones have been in the experience, except maybe that woman that we remarked on, you know, when we first entered the retail space at the beginning.
Right.
To her.
And these folks are dressed a little more like people I've met at raves in the woods. So I felt like I understood these characters. Like
I went to a rave in the woods. I was probably about 14 years old. So yeah, not how I was dressed back then.
I have worn funny outfits and gone to raves.
This is where the rabbit comes in as well. I was really curious about the rabbit because I've played this a few times. I've gone through this a few times, and
it doesn't let you click on it either. It's not interactive, right?
Not as far as I'm aware. I'm spilling my cocktail everywhere. Yeah.
That's okay. It's Friday. You're supposed to spill your cocktail.
I actually have like a on ice extra cocktail.
So I love this environment personally. Like I wanted to hang out in it. I don't know why the lights are doing that thing. Like, is there a helicopter looking for the rave? Like what's happening? But the water
over a dome. It's almost like there's a luminescent field above them. Yeah.
Right. Well, here's that restricted area again.
Incredibly bright. Yeah.
Yeah, it's I mean, beautiful lighting and unreal, and it really does show that off. Again, here's an outfit that I would consider wearing, but have also like I've seen a lot of people. The heels don't work in the woods, but you know
the lighting's also a little bit off, right? Because they're now in the dark, and an ambient light source.
They haven't been relit for a woodsy environment, so it looks a little odd. But honestly, like this was my favorite of the environments. Just from I want to hang out in here, and I like can try and spend as much time in here as possible. I'll say there we go. There's the rave. It's like taking control now. So I'm not going to have any control. I'm going to have my drink. That looks like a friend of mine's art, I would say. That looks like Seraphin's art.
See, that looks a little better because it's ambient light, right? The lighting on that model looks great.
This scene is great. This whole scene is beautiful. I'm going to pull us out for a sec. We can still hear us, but I want everyone to see that beauty. It's a really gorgeous moment. I wish the rave lasted longer. Like that was the one thing I found was like, I wanted us to stay in the rave as much as possible. I'm enamored with the forest. I think this part works really well. Mm-hmm. Like just the way the water glows. Like I've been to ravey forest gatherings like this with folks dressed like this at about 3 a.m. With all sorts of weird lighting. So that part, it is obviously like there's some sort of strange, weird lighting going on, but this feels pretty like normal, like legit to me. This dress as well, I was like, oh crap, I have a dress like that. And I used to have those boots. This poor person looks really K-holed out or something. I don't know what's wrong with them, but They feel like they've been maybe dancing a little too long.
Yeah, they're a bit zombified at this point. That's definitely what it felt like.
It's like, oh, these people are on the heavy drugs, which, you know, that's probably authentic. It's interesting that they chose that they chose this sort of rave in the woods as their catwalk. I don't know. I liked that part of the design process in terms of like.
It is also meant to replicate a catwalk. Like that's the thing. I mean, they're not catwalking, we're catwalking through it, but that's a very catwalk feel.
Yeah, yeah, and the nightclub or the rave is a form of catwalk. Like it's where we tend to, you know. I don't wear a puffy enough. Like this.
Oh, I sweat too much for it to be considered a catwalk.
This one cracks me up so much. It's not just the armor legs, which, you know, but it's the puffy NASA jacket.
Oh yeah, that's been getting a lot of chatter.
It's killing me. The NASA purse I dug, and this outfit I dig. Like I would wear pretty much everything there except for, you know, those knee problems. I don't know about that. So here it's like Indiana Jones style, which I didn't dig this part of it as much, but that just me. The city is so evocative, right? You have that like twisted bus, and like I want more to happen with one of the storylines, but it feels very disjointed, kind of like probably doing certain drugs in the woods would.
You're right though. Like, what is the actual journey of we're not the protagonist, obviously. We're just, you know, passive in the space.
Right.
But I do wonder what the intent of the journey was, if there was even an intent.
Yeah, and fashion often stays away from intention, and that might have been a very, you know, clear and intentional choice. So here we are, we've got 6 minutes left, and we realize that there is a pursuit of sorts now. Like there's a sword up there and a whole thing, and we're starting to get the sense that there's something else going on here. Now, it was at this point where I'm like, wait, is the rave the process to knighthood? Like, is this some sort of, you know, glorification of the raver? Right? And so
at this point, I was just thinking, does this go for another 10 chapters? Yeah.
The heaviness of the metal, chunk, chunk, chunk. Very androgynous, strong knight pulling forward. All right. So again, I'm like, can I see anywhere? But no, you really get nothing at all. You have to go.
6 minutes left in this. I thought this was the end. Oh, it's 6 minutes that we have left. It's not 6 minutes.
It gives you 20 minutes to, you know, finish the journey.
Oh, that was lovely coming back that night at sunrise.
Yeah.
I could just fire on the PC, so on my phone it wasn't great. But
the lighting and the ray tracing.
It's the experience.
Yeah. Again, these are outfits of people I've pretty much seen at gatherings in beautiful places like this. So this felt very authentic. Again, I wanted to stop and talk to these folks, but then you realize that there's a timer on you. So you're real. It's a little bit of a strange construct. Those are also not my favorite shoes. I don't understand the shoes, but freedom and high heels don't go together for me.
Sunrise does, you know, with the color of the high heels. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've walked many a mile in some high heels, but yeah. Okay, so here we got a little bit of a res problem, but it's doing okay. All right, let's pull us back into it here. So for those of you watching the stream, if you have any questions for Michelle and I, we're going to pull up a little bit of more of the agency perspective and some of the PR around this next. But we wanted you to at least get a sense of what the experience looks like for those of you who hadn't had a chance to do it yet. Cheers to the knight who has unearthed the sword. She slays. This I love.
What did you make of this? Yeah, what did you make of this when you first got to it?
So you got the sword, you get the sunrise, and then you take a deep breath, and that's your goal?
Like, is it interactive? Like, are you able to actually hold it over that? Because I was on mobile the first time I got all the way to the end. Took me 2 attempts because I got bored halfway through.
I did the breath the first time.
I was holding it. I was pressing it because on mobile it looks like a button.
Right. Right.
So I thought I thought that was finally the interactivity moment. Where I was going to get something and then like I would unlock my rings and then I would be able to move forward.
So there's my screenshot from earlier when I hit P. So I'm going to download that. It does let you tweet it out, but you know, that's...
I hit P like quite a few times throughout it and I only got one of them.
So it also lets you only play once an hour, I noticed.
Yes. And from what I work with a number of different incredible production companies. One of them is Current Studios. They are in New York and headquartered in Canada. And, you know, I was chatting a little bit to their VP of Creative Technology, Steve Martellin. Awesome, very, very smart guy, knows everything about everything. And, you know, he was so blown away, right? That we got it. Julia's also pressing it. Julian is pressing it. And the once an hour is also, I think he was trying to explain to me, but maybe I wasn't understanding it, just not unusual, that it was from a bandwidth point of view, because every time we play this, it costs them, obviously.
Oh, yeah. It's not cheap. The cloud service is extremely expensive to run this in the web.
Yeah, so if we were keeping it open, and maybe that's also part of the time restriction, right? Because then they can predict the session time.
That's exactly why they put the time restriction on there. It also drives repeat performances, though, because you want to go back and see if you missed anything.
You do. You want to go back. And yeah, I wonder if maybe there's a way that you could have saved some scenes and then gone back to them in a less labor-intensive way. By that, I mean, you know, I want to go back and check out. I mean, yes, there's the lookbook, so you could go back and check out the specific outfits. And you can stay in the lookbook, by the way. You just can't necessarily do the game.
Right, because this is just images. It's not trying to serve a fully immersive world to a website. And we have to recognize here that Unreal is giving us a lot of data, a lot of detail, even on a very, you know, closed track experience. It's a lot of information to serve. And so anyone who doesn't have a reasonable, you know, signal, Wi-Fi, I would say, you know, a couple up and down just to be able to run the experience, because it is very intense.
It did not heat my phone up. And first time I played it, it wasn't even as intense as a lot of web AR experiences that I've done. Certainly not even as intense sometimes as, you know, if my computer is running too many browser windows.
Now, I wonder if that's because the data is all on the cloud and not necessarily stored on your device.
Exactly. And I think that they have done an incredible job, and not just I think, like, again, Steve, who kind of has a lot of the ability to break down a lot of the stuff and look for what was incredible about it. This is an incredibly technically savvy, structurally web project.
Well, and it's using Unreal to do photorealism that has been generally elusive, especially on the web. I mean, we've seen this level of detail in a few video games, but not many. And honestly, Unreal has been just making leaps and bounds in terms of virtual production and virtual beings. And so you can imagine these models this year being virtual beings next year. And I think it's only a matter of time before this happens to be a more interactive experience. You know, 2020 is a great year to experiment with with modalities and new types of media. And this is a really interesting experiment. I really did want it to be interactive, but the artist, as I understand, spent 6 months on the experience itself. So, I mean, for the quality of all of these scans, we're talking about 40 plus here on the catwalk. And then using this lookbook as this other form of a catwalk is really clever. I mean, I found it really easy to explore, and I enjoyed this a lot more than anything that I've seen in the other, fashion space.
So I wasn't a big fan of the lookbook, I'm going to say. I know that it was hosted on Sketchfab. Shout out to Sketchfab. They've also come leaps and bounds this year in terms of just awareness, popularity, functionality. But I first experienced it on mobile, again, got to say. And it's the lookbook is a clunky experience on mobile. Yeah. And then, because you can't zoom in, they've got there's the main look, and then there's the 2 ones on either side, so you really don't have all of the screen to explore the main look, because you've got these other ones up in the wing. And I wasn't even on desktop. If you go, I don't know if you can go back to the lookbook, you're not able to zoom in on any part of the model. So in e-commerce how you can go to like hyper zoom on any app or any website that's worth its weight in fashion. And if you click on one, and I'm able to, like, what if I want to zoom in all the way to that material, or I want to zoom into the top? Try going up. You can't get to the top.
Yeah, it doesn't let you.
And that really frustrated me, because if I want to see how something sits, I like to zoom in as far as seeing fiber. Maybe this isn't the place to do it, because
it works against them on a few of these designs, because it ends up making some of the designs look more ratty or less durable. I feel like the textures don't come across.
I want to zoom in and see texture, but also the fact that I can't zoom in on the shoulders just really bugged me for some reason. Like, you can turn it around, sure, but I can't zoom in and go up. It was just so weird. It felt like such a limitation, and even more limited on and this part wasn't part of the game, so they could have done this part differently. They could have had clips of an actual model wearing the clothes at this point, because it's not like they didn't have that. So I wanted to dig more into the fashion side of it, and I found that part of it a little bit lacking. But that's where the website kicks in, right? And you can actually go and see this collection. Presumably, I haven't even gone to look, because I buy most of my Balenciaga like this secondhand. Yeah, I was a little disappointed by the deep dive on the fashion side as well.
So it says that they delivered this as a VR runway visible only via headset to a limited number of guests in December, and then December 6th released. The avatar journey is set in 2031. So we do, obviously the journey is what we saw. In the future, a garment that appears to serve one function may serve another. So obviously, these kinds of big cloaks and puffers that also, will keep you warm at the forest rave. Armor as a sort of evoking of both game mode, but also as again, protection and these sort of multifunctional wardrobe elements. That made a lot of sense. I did not get this 3D pump. I didn't understand where they were going with that. But I guess their shoes are 3D printed. So I feel like there are certain things that they don't really tell the story of very well that probably could have been easier to find this information.
Yeah, the article that was in Paper Mag, I don't know if that's one of the ones you got up. I think I shared it in one of the feeds that we were talking about this. They went into a lot of the backstory about the creator wanting to depict a version of the future that an ideal version of the future. So there was a lot of stuff about the green space in the city was starting to come into the city a lot more. There was a lot more greenery. There were a lot more like, roof gardens and things like that. The advertising was for things like, sustainable farming, green, like plant-based meat, things like that. And I thought that was really interesting. But again, well, there's a fine line between having that in there and telling people about it, and then having that in there and having people discover it.
Right.
And I don't know. That's always a question. It's always a question whenever you're doing anything user interface or content wise, which is how obvious do you get with what it is you're making.
Right. So this article, this is bizarre, but there's a few that are similar. That the designer's name is Demna. I'm going to mispronounce this. Gvasalia, Gvasalia. I'm going to cut and paste that for you. So the designer envisioned a mythological space age adventure set in 2031. And so we have 50 avatars in this neo-medieval style reminiscent of Raised by Wolves and the upcoming Dune. So that's an interesting mix of inspirations. So sustainable and smart consumption, which I didn't get in that storyline.
But I did when I read further information, and that's the thing. Yeah, there really were these. It was about smart cities, sustainable cities, more livable cities.
Right.
It was about more sustainable production practices, consumption practices, and I thought that was incredibly interesting. And that also, answered a lot of questions for me about why they maybe didn't make it as interactive. It was really about the world. But then why was I on rails? And then why was I not prompted to look up and read some of those things? But then, come on, you're already showing off a lot and expecting a lot of people to get through this experience. So I think to your point, you said it really well before. This is the start of something. They can build on this. I wonder if they're going to reuse this world. I wonder if this is going to become an iterative world. And if we're going to see them coming back to this space and adding more to it. I think that the VR experience would have been, is this the VR experience? So you said you jumped into the runway world or the game world.
This is a video that was attached to the Vogue article. And so I think this is the VR catwalk.
I thought that they took people through the VR, through the entire.
I would have hoped that they did both. I mean, that would have been better to me. But I mean, this is what the media would expect of a catwalk. So I can see where this is valuable too, right? For your 40 fashion writers at your major magazines and your editors. So I don't know.
This is 3D. Okay. This isn't 360. This is 3D.
Mm-hmm. And this is just a video that was on the Vogue article. But I do think that we're going to see a lot more of these campaigns. I love the scans. I think they did a fantastic job with, all of this detail and the movement, the renders, the compression. This is beautiful work. Quality technically is outstanding. I think fashion is ready to be more interactive. And so, for example, being able to see ourselves in these outfits and then embody one of those characteristics and then, walk through the world as one of the models, right? Just that sort of embodiment change, I think, could change the whole experience.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of, we didn't have a lot of agency.
Right. And I think that transmission of agency is not something that, every game is great at. And obviously the fashion industry hasn't done a lot of that in the past either. But it's a missed opportunity. I hope we can see more of those kinds of things next year.
Yeah, I think that's step one, because there were, I do not feel like there was I don't feel like there was a connection here with the gaming world. From the use of Unreal, from the beauty of the environment, 100%, absolutely. Even potentially from some of the build aspect as well, as you mentioned, and that performance aspect, which was very, very impressive. But I don't know if this was I don't know if I would love to know what more gamers think of this. I reached out to a couple of my heavy gaming friends, work at major studios and work with third-party integrations and things like that. So we're very familiar with this. And it's, yeah, if you could class it as a game, it's a game world. And this is where we start to get, semantics are becoming really complicated now, because we're dealing with more and more game worlds. We're dealing with more and more virtual environments, but they're not virtual reality. We're using game worlds and VR worlds to create web-based experiences, and yes, you can look around it.
And your mileage may vary if this works for you or not. Like if you care about fashion, this probably works for you, and if you don't care about fashion, it probably doesn't, because it doesn't give you anything else. Have you taken a look at like Complex Land or any of the other more immersive game spaces? Because I have that up on another window, and
so this Monday or Tuesday, it probably was Monday, I got onto a client call and I started it by saying I've been in 3 virtual worlds this morning. So I spent half an hour in Balenciaga. I'd been at Lens Fest, at Snapchat Lens Fest, and then I'd been at Complex Land, and it was and then it was 9 o'clock in the morning, and I had my first client call, and I'd spent almost 3 hours in these other worlds. I didn't spend a long time in it. I have to say that first off, I found the content quality, if you actually watch the live streams, I know that's not what we're talking about and dissecting right now, it was phenomenal. They did this one segment on whether young artists are getting ripped off, manipulated, used, and it was just such powerful content. It was really amazing. So go and watch some of this content. If anyone is watching this, please go and watch some of the day recaps from Complex Land, because the content there, some of it was just phenomenal, just really insightful, really honest, brutally honest, really, really good. The world itself, the comments and things like that, it was so 2D. That was so weird to me, going and looking at the collections, and it was like a pop-up box, a modal. And
it's like a 2.5D series of ads though, right? Like what are we really getting here are ads.
It's a retail conference.
With a couple of talks.
It's a retail conference, so I get that. But like this, it was so 2D slapped on the top. It felt really weird for me. But then also I haven't been like on the sneaker freaker sort of, angle since I left, Australia many years ago and stopped getting sneakers tattooed on me and buying them. But I used to be in that world a little bit more. And I think I would have been well into it. I would have known the names. I would have anticipated this. This would have been a cool way for me to experience it. Me coming in separately outside of the passion area. It's not one of my passion areas anymore. I found it frustrating that everything was like 2D in a shop. I would have liked to have clicked on that thing and had somebody talking to me, or had the clothes modeled, or
right. I mean, there are half a dozen worlds we use where those are interactive booths where there's a real person there. And so I was a little disappointed that it wasn't necessarily well staffed from the brand side. Like you can't necessarily build a relationship unless you happen to catch someone at the right time. It was very serendipity was fine, but
yeah, we've been doing now these, online expos and things. We've had an entire year where you haven't been able to walk up to a booth in a virtual conference and have an interaction with somebody. Well, now you can, because month number 1, people realize that you still need to have that one-to-one connection. So yeah, how cool would it have been to have breakout groups, and maybe there were people dwelling in that particular merchant space, and you could have chatted about what you thought about it, rather than it just be like an e-commerce pop-up link. By that, I mean, you kind of go to a store and you see their inventory, but why not chat into that area too? Why only have chat in the live streams? There were just so many more opportunities, I think, for interaction. But then again, I'm guessing a lot of people went to this and they were on text and they were on, Discord or whatever else they were on with their friends who were also attending. So maybe, you can't discount that organic, peer-to-peer normal communication that would have happened while you were both in this world together. Like if I'd gone to this with a friend, maybe we were texting. Yeah.
So what do you think agencies and brands and creatives should take from these experiences in order to, create better experiences next year?
Dive into the psyche of the people that you're trying to, I won't say rip off, that you're trying to pull into your world. I honestly think that there were probably just limitations with the Balenciaga thing in terms of time and cost. I think you're right. You said, do you think that the reason there wasn't more interaction was just because they didn't have time to? Probably, yes. Very likely.
Right.
Kind of other ideas. Yeah.
Well, this is lovely, though. For example, you can, no, I have no, so it's got a number of different interaction points, but this is more like user-created art content. This is made in Unity, not Unreal. So obviously we're seeing something that looks a little bit different in terms of quality. But I think it's fascinating that that they chose such different approaches, right? One is extremely interactive and one is not interactive at all.
Well, one's a conference and one's intended to be more of a, have a couple of stems and for a while, but but complex. One thing I loved about Complex Land, besides the content, the live stream content, which I thought was fantastic programming, but that ticker tape. I love the ticker tape across the top of the screen because you could link you into all of these places. Oh my God, so helpful. So they had multiple ways of navigating. I really appreciated that. Also, if you did, I can't remember what it was, but I was like double clicking my avatar or whatever, and it was doing backflips and things, which I thought was funny. But what I wanted to do was jump up on top of things. So I wanted to be able to get on top of the buildings. And then maybe you could have switched to like a point of view cam. How cool would that have been? That would have been a little bit more gamer, where you could have switched to point of view. And then as you were running, you were like seeing in 3D, but more Balenciaga style. Right.
So you do have this map, you have this schedule, which I liked. You can, go to the stage, maybe catch up with somebody you want to see. I don't feel like I got much out of this. I think if I were looking for, I don't know. Maybe I'm not the target market for this, perhaps. But,
I know, yeah.
I like the art. Like the one thing I did enjoy was seeing how many different user-generated and community-generated art pieces, and I think that's mostly the Adobe relationship with the rest of this content, because I mean, we have these brands and things. We have food trucks and different. Here's Showtime's theater.
I didn't go over to the food trucks. What was that about? What did they do with the food trucks? Can we go there?
Oh yeah, of course. I keep hoping to catch something that I'm supposed like I didn't catch any of the performances at all here. So today's the last day of Complex Land. But
it's a long conference as well. I'm sorry, but oh my God. It's an incredibly long conference, but that's, in normal, like I went to TED Women a couple of months ago. Now, in person, when I've gone to TED Women before, it's been 3 days. Great, because you're on location. You can't leave. It's not like South by Southwest. It's not in the middle of a city. Like when you go to TED Women, you are like at the compound,
yeah.
You do, and you have to turn everything's out of office. So, you really have to be present. But this year they did it in a day, and it was so great and so immersive. And I actually made a concerted effort to block out my calendar and not take, I just attended that conference that day. So I think that brands really need to be mindful of what they're asking for in terms of virtual commitment, because just because it used to go over 5 days in person does not mean that it should be over 5 days now when it's digital.
We're gonna find out what free drugs is, because apparently that's what is in the food trucks is free drugs.
Sold out. Free drugs are sold out.
Yeah, free drugs sold out, of course. Everything good is sold out. So you can find some Nikes maybe instead. But that's complex land. I really loved aspects of this. I have to say, I'm not so into, most of the shops were a little boring for me, but I tried to talk to people. Yeah. It wasn't very interesting to talk to people, to be honest. Like I was hoping for a little more there, but you know.
So there's a question in here that we've been asked in the chat: how do brands measure the success of their entertainment campaigns, meaning these sorts of campaigns, other than purchases? Talk, chatter, reach. The fact that there are probably multiple live streams about the Balenciaga thing. There's probably a lot of people who hadn't heard the word Balenciaga or know how to pronounce it, or who forgot how much Balenciaga she owned. And I'm wearing a Balenciaga dress, and I'm not wearing any shoes, but I have a few. But it's awareness, it's consideration. It's honestly showing a commitment or an appreciation that their target consumer is not just who they thought they were before. So they're reaching a whole new demographic. I think that they're trying things. A lot of brands try things out. So a lot of brands push and try things out. And us as marketers, if we made it, we say, fantastic, it was successful. If we didn't make it, we're either envious or we're asking, hey, it won some awards, but did it really work? Did it really work? Work. Was it effective? But a lot of brands are just trying things out these days. And to be honest, I really hope that Balenciaga world is persistent. I hope that they keep it as a space where they can reactivate. I think that's important. I think that we moved from a lot of in-person events where things were built and then destroyed. And I hate seeing digital waste as much as I hate seeing physical waste. And so I really hope that as brands are building these things, Balenciaga, perhaps Complex Land as well, that they do not throw these spaces away, but that they keep them and grow them, because it takes a huge amount of effort and blood, sweat, and tears and money to build these environments. And you can now bring people back to them. I think that the next PR event should not necessarily be a virtual runway like they had, but why not walk people through this experience? Have everyone tune in and then do a guided tour through the space like you would at a gallery or something, and then allow the guests to chat with each other. These virtual spaces that brands create can become persistent. They can be used to they can be used to reactivate. You can own them. So longevity is one of those. Can I use this space again? Can I use it to activate? Can I become a destination? I own it. I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on Fortnite. I'm not somewhere else. This is a space that brands themselves own. They now own this virtual space. That's fantastic. You have a virtual showroom.
And they can make it whatever they want. So we can begin to participate with these brands in a whole new way. And so whether that's programming celebrities to come into Complex Land and do things together, or maybe giving us some agency next year and making these spaces more playful or embodied. Obviously, they're obviously beautiful, and hats off to the artists in France and in Germany who've been able to pull these technical marvels off, because volumetric, this is a beautiful example of virtual production and a mix of volumetric and other means of capture. If those of you who are interested in doing this kind of production at home, you're welcome to reach out. I'm at Playable Agency. Michelle also works with brands in designing campaigns. I work with teams in building out a pretty wide variety of strategies for virtual events and experiences. So you're welcome to bounce off of either of us. Michelle, you also work with brands in Australia and New Zealand, as well as here in the US. Do you want to talk a little bit about how you go through the process of designing a campaign like this?
Okay, so the really complex thing about this now is that we're getting a lot of different departments converging and a lot of different agencies converging. So you're now talking about potentially your sponsorships and brand marketing, event marketing, now converging with your advertising, converging with your influencer marketing. You're talking about a lot of different brand agencies and internal departments coming together. And so the biggest challenge that I see, or the biggest opportunity, I guess, I see these days is brokering the relationship and the collaboration between these disparate groups, because no longer is an event just the event marketing agency. It's now also the social agency, the digital agency, the ad agency. Everyone's coming together. So it's slowly, but we've thrown it into there's no rule to this anymore. I think that cross-team collaboration.
Right. And this was a 6-month campaign just from a creative point of view, but building these kinds of campaigns can take all year. So if you're trying to do something like this for next fall, now is a great time to reach out to Michelle and I and to other creatives to begin thinking about how to build your own virtual environments, experiences, and worlds.
Yeah, definitely. And then there's quick ways you can do it. You can activate on social platforms and things like that. There's ways that you can piggyback on games and game worlds, which we've seen happening. And then there's, hey, should we just be building something ourselves because we're going to come back and leverage it and use it again and again. So, we know how to ask the right questions. So yeah, if you have questions, we can help you walk through them and answer them and figure out what to do. Yeah.
And if you're trying to do something that's a little more lightweight, but you're trying to do something that's potentially embodied, other means of integration with video, for example, we're using a tool called StreamYard today, but I produce in 20 plus different platforms and multicast across the board. So if you're trying to figure out how you're going to bring together a strategy for the interactive stream combined with whatever your media or content or experience might be, now is a great time to be doing the experimentation and to be learning from some of these other tools like the Balenciaga catwalk this week. So Michelle, thank you so much. I'm going to sign us off at Virtual Happy Hour soon. And I just wanted to thank you for joining me for what's now the end of my cocktail. I don't know how you're doing, but it's time for a refresh over here.
I'm really full because I had a backup on ice and kept filling it up. So I'm feeling but also very optimistic about 2021. So that's good.
Well, I'm feeling really excited for 2021 personally. I'm gonna switch to my happy holidays little background here because it's been a long year, and I think we need to celebrate more of these little joyful things, whether it's tiny little gatherings with friends or, having a drink with someone on a stream. I'm grateful for you, and I'm glad you're with me. So let's figure out how to take this into different virtual worlds next year. If you need help with any of these concepts, I hope that you'll reach out to Michelle and I. We've had such a lovely time with you, and thanks, Juliana, and to the rest of you who are watching on Facebook whose messages I could not bring in today. Thank you for joining us. This is Evo, and I'm going to sign us off here. And Michelle, do you have any final words for those of us who are thinking about creative flow and how to bring all of these beautiful experiences closer to home this year?
Yeah, you need to talk it through. We need to riff. There need to be more things like this where there isn't a set agenda and we get to form opinions as we speak them. We get to change our minds about things. We get to talk it through. We just have to be talking this stuff through. There's no right way to do this. If anyone tells you know exactly how to do it, they're lying. No, I'm saying we guide, but there's no one size fits all for this stuff. We really need to understand what you're trying to achieve, what's possible, what we bite off as the first chunk, and how we grow it, because we don't want any of this stuff to be one and done. I don't want anyone to treat virtual experiences, virtual worlds, game worlds, anything like that as oh, check, we've done that on the brand marketing, bingo sheet. What's the next thing? This is real. And yeah, we need to take it seriously, but also have fun with it.
Well, that's a great closing note. So I'm going to sign off. This is Evo Haining at Playable Agency. Michelle, thank you for joining me today. And anytime you need help, feel free, reach out, and let's create some magic in 2021. Take care from all of us here.
Bye.
Bye.